Hello and welcome to the Evercade Retreat. My name is Gene Jake and today I'm reviewing the Broken Sword collection for the Evercade. The Broken Sword games are a series of point-and-click adventures following the adventures of George Stobart and his partner Nicole. They are sort of Indiana Jones style archaeological adventures based on history with a fantastic or fantasy element added to them, much like the Indiana Jones films. At the time of its release, Broken Sword was considered something of a milestone in the point-and-click adventure genre, with its cartoon-style animation, cinematic presentation, and slightly more dramatic, less comical plots than other point-and-click adventures of the era, although it is still funny. Considered point-and-click classics, they are well regarded and were much asked for in the Evercade community, or at least some parts of it anyway. Naturally, point-and-click games aren't for everyone. There's no fast-paced arcade action fun here. Originally released for the PC, console was also released on the PlayStation 1, and it's the PlayStation versions we have here. And much has been said about that. When it was first released, Shadow of the Templars was all the animation speeds were running far too fast, and it just seemed a bit off. This is apparently due to them using the NTSC version and some problems with the emulation. They have since patched it, and it is running at the correct speeds. And that's how I played through it. I did wait until it was patched before doing my playthrough. Fortunately, the second game had no such issues, but I'll get into the technical state of them as I do each game. As there are only 2 games here, there's no point in ranking them. I'll just give my thoughts at the end. And with that in mind, let's get on with it and start with Broken Sword: Shadow of the Templars. The story begins with George Stobart, an American tourist, on holiday in Paris at a cafe where there's a bombing which is actually an assassination. Naturally, this leads George on a globe-trotting adventure about the Knights Templar. Shortly after the bombing, George meets Nicole, a French photographer, and they start investigating. And obviously that's how the story starts to unfold. In true point-and-click adventure fashion, the dialogue is very funny, but the story itself is a bit more dramatic than you'd find in most point-and-click adventures of the era. It's quite cinematic and full of intrigue and mystery, and it will keep you suitably engrossed through the entire 10-hour run of the game. Well, as long as you like point-and-click adventures, because let's face it, they can be quite Marmite. They're sedate, they're slow-paced, they do require a bit of patience. If you play your Evercade mainly for your arcade action, this might not be for you. There isn't a huge amount of moon logic here, something that a lot of point-and-click adventures of the time were quite infamous for. The puzzles generally make sense. The voice acting is pretty well done for the time. There's lots of dodgy accents, not just the French, the English, the American, the Syrian accents, they're all quite over the top. I suppose you could say it's a product of its time. The presentation as a whole is very good. Well animated characters, beautiful backgrounds, everything you'd expect to see in something like this. The music is also very much on point for the genre and the type of game. It is a very good point-and-click adventure and was rightly regarded as a classic at the time, and I think it still holds up pretty well today. However, this is the PS1 version and there are some technical issues. Even with the patch, there is some stuttering here and there, for pauses when it sounds or music and certain things get loaded in, and on certain scenes where it cuts from one scene to another, there's a bit of a loading pause, which can lessen the dramatic tension of those scenes. The thing is, this is a version that I played through back in the 90s, and I didn't really notice them then. I don't know if it's a case of they weren't present, or just I was more forgiving of such things at the time. I'm not sure it's something that players can fix with further patches. Even so, they are irritations and they don't really ruin your enjoyment of the game unless you have a real problem with loading and pauses, but they are noticeable, which is why I mention it. So my final verdict on Broken Sword: Shadow of the Templars is it's a classic point-and-click adventure, and although this isn't the best way to play it and there are some technical irritations, the game itself does hold up and is well worth a playthrough, with the usual caveat as long as you like point-and-click adventures. So the question is, where does that leave things for Broken Swords 2: The Smoking Mirror? Well, let's get the technical state out of the way straight away. This is a vast improvement on the first game. Pretty much all of your technical issues I mentioned about the first game are gone here. It runs much smoother, the performance as a whole is much better. I'd also say the graphics have been ported from the PC original much better here than they had with the first game. As for the game itself, it is largely the same kind of thing. Although there are some technical improvements, it still controls largely the same. So it should be a nice smooth transition for people going from the first game to this one. Really the main difference here is the story that unfolds. This time gone are the Knights Templar, and it involves some sort of Mayan Central American shenanigans. The story begins with George and Nicole off to meet some professor to learn about some Mayan artifact that she's gotten hold of. It's a trap and they're attacked. Nicole is kidnapped. The game begins with George tied to a chair facing a large spider of unusual proportion that I assume is rather deadly in a house that's on fire. You need to escape and, set off and learn what happened to Nicole and uncover the mysteries of the Mayan artifact and everything. What follows is an adventure much like the first game, travelling to different locations, talk to people, humorous dialogue, dodgy accents, and, well, you get the gist. It's a sequel that's largely a rehash, not in terms of plot but in formula. That's not a bad thing. The first game was a good game, and this one is, well, it's largely the same. It's another good globe-trotting adventure. Throughout the adventure you will notice various improvements overall, but again, they are fairly minor. It's not a revolutionary sequel. You'll also come across various returning characters from the first game, so I do strongly recommend playing the first game first. It's also worth noting the game is shorter than the original. I'd estimate maybe 20 to 30% shorter. But honestly, I don't really see that being much of a problem. Games like this can outstay their welcome, and I think this feels a good length for this sort of adventure. The story itself, I would say, does feel less historically accurate, although I wouldn't accuse the first game of being historically accurate, but it felt very weighted in history. This feels a little bit more hokey and adventure-y, sort of like comparing Raiders of the Lost Ark with the Temple of Doom in the Indiana Jones franchise. But it's still a good fun adventure with fairly iconic characters who, well, they're moulds really, aren't they? They don't develop and change much, they're just fun, I'd say, fairly iconic characters. You know what to expect from them. So overall, I'd say Broken Swords 2 The Smoking Mirror is technically, as in on a technical level, the superior game. In terms of story and adventure, I don't think it's quite on par with the first game, which is probably why it's not quite so fondly remembered. So it's a worthy but not groundbreaking sequel. Taking the collection as a whole, with only 2 games being of the same genre and very similar, and the slight technical issues of the first game, well, I think it's safe to say it's not going to be a cart for everyone. Although I would assume that just the descriptions of the games and seeing gameplay footage, most people probably have a good idea whether they're going to be interested in this collection or not. Is it an essential cart? No. Would I recommend it? With caveats. Those, I'd imagine, are quite obvious. 1, you have to like point and click adventures, and 2, you have to be a little bit forgiving of some of the shortcomings of the PlayStation versions. There are remastered versions of these games out there, and digitally you can get them cheaper. But if you're in the Evercade for either having a full set, or you like having the physical media, or you want to be able to play these games on the go, well, maybe you'd want to get this cart. Give the collection a score out of 10. I'd have to give it a 6.5 out of 10. The games themselves are good. I've mentioned the various issues, but there's no getting away from the fact they are very good games. The problem is there's only 2 of them, and being so similar, there's no variety here. There's no broad appeal. Personally, I would have liked it if they'd been able to include Beneath the Still Sky and Lure of the Temptress and made it a Revolution software collection rather than a Broken Sword collection, or maybe Broken Sword and Friends. But I guess those 2 games would have been harder to implement on the Evercade, and given that they're both point and click adventures as well, they wouldn't have really increased the broad appeal much, but they would have given a bit of variety in terms of flavour and made it seem like a more attractive package, especially for those people who feel that this collection doesn't offer sort of very good monetary value as you can get the games cheaper digitally elsewhere. But hey ho, this is a collection we got, and like I say, I've enjoyed playing through it regardless of, well, everything. So anyway, I think I've said everything that needs to be said on this one, so I'm going to call it a video right there. As always, I will leave out with a silly song based on the games, or one of them, and I'll see you in the next video.
In the streets of Paris, where secrets lie, a clown arrives, an explosion lights up the sky, a tapestry woven by the threads of fate, a hero's journey, a world awaits. Ancient whispers call through time, a hidden truth, a danger unfurled through shadows deep and mysteries untold, where history's secrets still unfold. The broken sword will shake the world. Templar seals, the darkness grows with every clue, the peril shows. Fragments of the past collide, and with the light their foes abide. Ancient whispers call through time, a hidden truth, a danger unfurled through shadows deep and mysteries untold, where history's secrets still unfold. promises long past, an untold story